Hi, Mickey.
Hey, Bob.
What you got there, Mickey?
I have a tire pressure gauge, Bob.
It actually looks like a tire. I guess
I
that's
know.
part of the appeal. It's got a little rubber tire around the gauge.
There's some fancy Greek word for this. I've been on a road trip, Bob.
Is that right?
I've been out discovering the heart of America, and I have a road trip report.
And what is that report?
Well, there's several items. The most interesting, not the most interesting, but one item is I have to listen to the radio all the time because I'm so inept technically that I couldn't get my iPhone to listen to Clubhouse while I was traveling across the desert. So I listened to a lot of local radio, and I realized how awful political talk radio, especially right-wing political talk radio, is.
Isn't right-wing the only kind there is on the radio?
Well, that's a good question. It's certainly the only kind I heard, but there are different varieties of right-wing. But it's either they're imitating Rush Limbaugh or they're doing what they told me to do when I tried out for talk radio, which is why I failed, which is they're trying to imitate Tucker Carlson. They always begin with a 10-minute rant that's sort of exactly the same, relying on basically the same facts, where they try to get as angry as possible. And it just becomes mind-numbing after a while. I mean, I think I discovered one new fact listening to about 20 right-wing talk radios. The worst is Mark Levin, who just screams his head off.
I don't suppose you remember the fact. That could be valuable.
The fact was how stupid Kamala Harris's attempt to describe what she was doing to deal with root causes was. She convened a Zoom meeting of commerce officials, Bob. That'll stop.
What, root causes of illegal immigration or what?
Of the migrant surge, yes. Anyway, that was the fact. It also so there's something that's gotten much worse. I don't know if it's the result of Tucker or Rush Limbaugh's opening up and everybody sort of auditioning for that, or. But
by the way, before we proceed, did you see Tucker's famous little freak out when he was interviewing the cop who refused to toe the party line about Chauvin?
No, I didn't.
It was good.
But
it was good.
What did the cop say?
Well, I think Tucker must have been expecting him to, cast more doubt on the verdict or something. But at some point, he just started complaining that police aren't doing a good enough job, it was just weird. You had to see it. And he unleashed this bizarro giggle that became famous while you were driving across the country. I'm sure you can
do his shocked face.
Well, his shocked face is like 70%. I mean, when he's really shocked, he doesn't do it. That's interesting, actually, because he was shocked that this guy didn't comply, and he didn't have the shocked face. No.
Anyway, listen to the 8-minute rants of Mark Levin and everybody on talk radio, and you realize how good Tucker is, because Tucker's monologues are worth listening to. And all these other monologues were basically worthless.
They are well crafted. I give him that much. Not to a constructive end, I might argue, but they are well crafted.
I think they're better than Limbaugh's, because Limbaugh always hid the ball, right? He made you listen to 3 hours.
It's been so long since we heard Limbaugh in his prime, or Limbaugh at all. Come to think of it,
I heard Limbaugh in his prime, but
your memory is reconstructive. We don't. Anyway, so what's item number 2?
I didn't like it then, and the best highlight of the talk radio was they had callers call in, and the National Guard is organizing 8-man teams to come get your guns.
Like, people believe that?
Well, one guy did. Yeah. He had a source. Even the host didn't quite believe that.
Are they going to vaccinate you while they're taking your guns?
They're going to implant the chip.
They should. Save taxpayers' money.
Yeah, absolutely. 3 in 1. The other thing is there's a lot of ads for jobs. So there's help wanted. The help wanted sign is out.
Doesn't this weaken your argument against loose immigration policy? I can't believe it looks like this is the first time you're considering this question.
Because they're offering signing bonuses. They're raising wages. They're doing all the things that you do in a tight labor market. That's good. So it's proof that a tight labor market works. Plus,
whoa, wait! I thought you said there are just tons of jobs. They're like they're saying, "Please, we need workers."
Right, and all the workers are sitting on the sidelines.
And you're saying that's a sign of a tight labor market.
Yeah.
Okay, good. But a tight labor market should lessen your concerns about the impact of immigration, right?
Well, right. That will loosen right now they're raising wages when once all the millions of migrants from Central America come here, they will stop raising wages. Yes, so it'll be hard for Americans to earn a living. So
these ads foreshadow a day when your argument will be strong again.
The argument is not that strong now because a lot of workers are sitting on the sidelines collecting unemployment benefits, which end in September.
Oh, you think that's the culprit?
That's another factor that leads you to think this might not be permanent. This is no time to let in 2 million immigrants, so we want wages to rise. So this is the process by which wages rise. But the point
your argument
the point is employers want workers now. So that make of it what you will.
That's good. I think we should pause to encourage people from countries to our south to come help out. Do you agree?
No, I don't think I agree.
Oh.
We'll get to that. The other thing you learn from the ads is that timeshares must have been the worst thing ever, because the other half of the ads are law firms who will get you out of your timeshare.
Aren't timeshares kind of obsolete?
That's what I thought, but apparently they're a scourge on the land, to judge from this.
Well, maybe it's people want out of them, because they are obsolete, because it's so...
It's possible. But you'd think there'd be a diminishing number. Anyway, it's... maybe they're ripping off the people that still have them as much as they can. I had a real estate epiphany. I visited a friend in Connecticut who had a beautiful house on like acres of beautiful land.
Pandemic's been very good for real estate value in Connecticut.
Right, good point. But it's in a rich part of Connecticut, not the richest part, but there's rich people around, and he gave me a price for the house, and it was 1/5 of the price that property would bring in Los Angeles. Even with the appreciation, New York real estate is dramatically cheaper than California real estate.
Yeah, but are you imagining it being as far away from Los Angeles as that house is from New York?
Well,
is this Fairfield County? This is like an hour. Where is this?
It's an hour train ride out.
Well, there you go.
But I mean, if you want to go downtown in L.A., it's an hour away from everything.
But nobody does want to go downtown in L.A.
And a lot of the houses where that would cost 5 times as much are an hour away from most places of employment, or 45 minutes.
So what do you conclude that
and even renters can't move out of New York to California because rents in L.A. are so high. It just flipped. It used to be that New York was the most expensive place in the country.
Well, no, I mean, Northern California
people were
that trophy.
forced to live there, and now California is the most expensive place
but it's
in the country.
It's an old story that Silicon Valley and San Francisco, that area was a hot market, and I think that's cooled off a little during the pandemic, but at least San Francisco per se, right?
I don't know, but I'm talking L.A., and L.A. was always like a cheap place with a lot of land, and you could always find some crappy apartment out in the suburbs, and that's becoming less and less true.
How much is your house worth? You don't have to answer that. You can answer it in the, as we say, in the Parrot Room.
I'm not even going to answer.
So have you covered? This is your third item.
It's worth too much. I don't know. It's third or fourth. I have a couple more.
Okay.
Incredible numbers of podcasts. I was listening to.
Oh, please! That's a painful subject. I don't want.
I was listening to iHeartRadio, which I think used to be Clear Channel, the biggest radio network in the country. They have nothing but podcasts. Every host is advertising his podcast. I can't believe anybody listens to.
It's distressing.
I can't believe anybody listens to them or that iHeartRadio is going to make a lot of money.
This is bad news for us, you realize, because some of these people have even bigger promotional budgets than we have.
Right, but they don't have our
talent. I realize that. They don't have our charm. There's a lot of things they don't have.
They don't digress and talk.
They don't have our
topic
charming,
radio.
digressive quality.
Right.
And they'll never will, because they don't want to.
I learned that right-wingers sort of have a grudging admiration for Tony Blinken because of the tough things he said about China.
Well, of course they do.
Okay, well...
He's a borderline neocon. They love him.
These things are all new to me. And the most
Although
troubling...
I will say there is progress reported on the Iran talks, so if that keeps up, I will say fewer unfavorable things about him per hour than I am now.
Tesla is already advertising its solar panels for houses.
Hey, I can top that. Elon Musk gets to build NASA's next lunar lander. SpaceX got the contract for that.
Right, but that I still don't believe that any astronauts are brave enough to go up in a SpaceX rocket, but they did yesterday, I think.
Well, not only that, they're going to descend to the surface of the moon. I mean, would you use an Elon Musk vehicle to descend to the surface of the moon?
I wouldn't use an Elon Musk vehicle yeah, I would use an Elon Musk vehicle to go around the block, but but they're brave.
Well, you shouldn't do what these people in Houston may have done. You read about this crash of a Tesla? The police say nobody was in the driver's seat.
I don't quite understand what went on because Musk says that the nav system couldn't have been on.
Musk says that so far, quote, or some hedge phrase like that, their data doesn't indicate that the autopilot system was engaged. The police say they're sure the guy was in the passenger seat and another guy was in the back seat. Now, it could be that the driver survived and then scrambled because he couldn't get out the left door, got out the right door. And you know why he scrambled? The world's longest fire. You know how long it takes to put out a fire when there's one of those Tesla batteries involved?
It was 4 hours, I think.
4 hours.
Yeah. I wonder if that applies to the cheap Chevy Bolt that I was going to
I'm sure it's the same basic... Aren't they all, whatever, lithium ion?
I think they're all lithium, yeah. But I mean, astronauts flew into space on a Musk rocket yesterday, so they're up there. So,
no, I mean, look, he's kicking Jeff Bezos' butt, which may be why. Just quickly, Jeff Bezos, announced his retirement. I think he's going to focus on space and go mano a mano with Elon on this space thing.
Really? I didn't realize that.
He's going to be chairman of the board still, but he's stepping down as CEO. And, Blue Origin, that's his passion. Blue Origin.
Is that was like news today?
No. I think it was. In fact, I think it was at least a week old.
Yeah. But I just meant it's interesting if local country music radio stations are advertising solar panels. That implies that solar panels are penetrating to the normal folk of America who don't have all that much money, and it's a good thing because it may be. Assuming solar panels are a good thing, which they may or may not be, but they probably are. Your man Joe Biden has committed to ambitious new carbon emissions goals, right? You saw that. This is all part of the plan. Yeah. Well, Elon Musk really pretty ambitious. I don't remember the numbers, but well, when I buy my electric car, that'll seal the deal. You can do that, really? I don't quite have enough money now, but oh right, you're living in a $37 jillion house. We're talking about liquidity, Bob. Rent out that I can see the patio. Rent that out. Yeah, no, you could put a family of four out there. Timeshare. The timeshare and then the NFT, and I'll be cooking with gas. Navajo country radio, I hadn't realized existed. You go through Navajo country, and there are these guys talking Navajo language, which isn't all that different from European languages. It doesn't sound. I thought it was Hungarian or Serbian or something. It's like, yeah, but it can't be closely related to them. Well, that's the mystery. I mean, there are no clicks. There are no weird. It's not in the Indo-European family, I assure you. Okay, but it sounds like somebody speaking some Eastern European language that you don't know. And now, then they play these.
Is that the language they used to do code during World War II?
I don't know. I assume so.
I think maybe it was.
But they may have had a special code that was a different language. I don't know. What do I know? It was there were Navajo code talkers, but
okay, that's what. I don't know. Right. So it was Navajo, the code talkers, and the question is whether they just used their native language in that baffled
or
the
whether they have a
Germans by
special
itself.
drum code that I don't know. The answer is I don't know.
Maybe it was Navajo plus Pig Latin. That just was too much for the Germans.
And then they play country songs, which are old classic country songs, by far the best country songs I heard all trip.
Wait, now this is a news flash. You're saying that in Middle America they play country music, Mickey? However much we're paying you to be our Middle American correspondent, it's not enough.
But
with research like that, thank you.
You missed the nuance, Bob. I'm drinking from a Megan
Nuanced
Dam.
AF? Oh, is that Megan Dom's branded thing?
This is a Megan Down mug. For her Unspeakable podcast.
Is she going to reciprocate with a plug for us? Do we know?
I don't know.
Have you arranged this? Is this part of a co-branding, co-marketing thing?
I had a cup of coffee with her, but we did not. There were only preliminary negotiations. I don't think we sealed any sort of permanent pact. But
Blogging Heads
was a mug.
Blogging Heads was a big inspiration for her.
Yeah.
Sadly, not my own.
Yeah,
part of
I now understand what she means by nuanced. I always thought it was wimpy, but no, she means there are only two lanes. You're either extreme right and extreme left, and if you have doubts about either one, you wind up roadkill in the middle. That's what she refers.
We're nuanced AF. I mean, I am. Right. I'm not sure about you. I am nuanced AF.
Right? No, you're too nuanced, according to some.
Name names.
People who think you should attack me harder. Think you're too nuanced.
Are you related to any of those?
It's possible. I'm related to a lot of people.
Are you?
Anyway, the weirdest thing I learned driving across country was it was a station 90. I think it was 97.1 in Memphis, a black station, and as their promotion, they were giving out $1,400 checks, emulating the $1,400 stimulus checks, which I noticed was in my mailbox when I came home. Nice to get.
In the mailbox of your $37 jillion home. UBI.
UBI? Right.
The UBI principle, giving money to rich, pampered elites like you.
I'm told I'm not pampered.
You should quit taking your guidance from whoever told you that. We'll get to that in the
anyway,
PR.
The promotion was a guy talking about how I'm pretty sure how it's like he had a stimulus check and he had the Social Security number was somebody else's and he could cash it and get away with it. And haven't you ever had your hand caught in the cookie jar? And it was sort of, he was considering whether to steal this person's stimulus check. And ultimately he decided against it because of the bad karma and because he wouldn't want somebody to do it to him. Mm-hmm. But the mere idea that they were promoting to an audience that would even consider stealing somebody's check because that's sort of the ethics of the community and you got to get paid somehow made me fear for the future of my country.
But he did reject ultimately the idea.
He ultimately rejected it.
So maybe he thinks I do have an audience that includes people who consider things like this and I want to steer them right. Of course there are people who consider things like this.
It's a huge fucking station. And if its audience is people who consider things like this, underclass culture is still alive.
That's quite a leap, I would say.
There's still things to worry about. Yeah. And it was just troubling. I've listened to a lot of black radio. I'd never heard that before. Okay?
That itself may be an interesting data point. Maybe this is an aberration. But it's certainly true that, if people feel alienated from a society or discriminated against by a society or whatever else, they're less likely to, feel scruples about strictly complying with the norms.
Whatever the root causes are, it's a bad thing. I
would say if you correct for income, this would probably largely disappear. I would imagine, but.
Well, the question is if you. I don't know. The point of underclass culture is you get an isolated, sort of constrained group, and if you looked at the larger group with the same income, you wouldn't find that. And that's
but
is it
your view that a kind of underclass culture is developing in Middle America with? Well,
I think that's probably true, but I don't know. I mean, that was sort of the point of Charles Murray's coming apart. I don't think he got into. Maybe he did morality. He got into like divorce rates and drug use, but maybe he did. I have to reread it.
I think that was what he was saying. Yeah.
But the impact, it seems to me, of this child allowance. I mean, if we're worried about people not going to work for $1,200 a month in unemployment plus COBRA, the child allowance would give a parent of two $600 a month plus free Medicaid. So we're worried about the work disincentive that creates. The problem with that is that it would spread it to everybody. In other words, it wouldn't be right now. The welfare is pretty surprisingly concentrated in the minority communities. If you look at people who are on welfare at any one point in time, over a year, it's mostly white people. But this spreads it. This spreads it way beyond the ghetto. This spreads it to way beyond neighborhoods of concentrated poverty. It spreads it all across the country, and it basically puts the deplorables on the dole. And so, yes, the trouble is that a sort of an underclass culture, because it's not, deplorables are not confined to neighborhoods the way underclass people are. It sort of spreads that, to everybody and dramatically expands it. That's why it's a bad thing.
So we have gotten to both immigration and child care allowance. Got to run, folks. So any other discoveries on your?
That was about it.
That's a lot of stuff. Time well spent. Time well spent, Mickey.
Thank you. Better than listening to Clubhouse.
I still haven't done that. I'm an Android guy. I feel,
You have to listen to Richard Rushfield's Suck Room on Clubhouse, where they make fun of all the other people on Clubhouse.
I'm not sufficiently Clubhouse literate to get those jokes, I'm sure.
Trust me, you'll get them.
So what'd you think of the Chauvin trial outcome?
I don't really know enough. It seems, I most of my information comes from reading Ann Coulter's columns, and she made a big point of, I think we talked about this before, how he would have been he was the guy brought in because they couldn't control Floyd. There were a couple of short cops, and he is a
Wait, who was brought in? Chauvin?
Chauvin, yeah. They brought him in because the cops that were there couldn't get the guy under control. And so his job was to bring him under control, and
yeah, but he wasn't. It's not like a specialty, right? I mean, I assume that whichever car was closest came.
I haven't the faintest idea. He was a third guy.
I doubt they said, okay, bring in our subduing big black guy's cop.
Well, he's
not even a big guy. Chauvin's not even a big guy.
He's not a big guy. So anyway, but the prosecution's own witness said he would have been justified using a taser or a stun gun on him, given his previous behavior, and that the knee on the neck technique was a less aggressive technique.
Wait, the defense? Who said that? The defense attorney said that?
No, the prosecution's police witnesses. They called all these witnesses from the Minneapolis police force to show that even the cops were turning against Chauvin, but some of those witnesses gave testimony that was actually helpful to Chauvin.
Okay.
Or should have been helpful. Anyway, that was one of them. So, I trust jurors to be conscientious, and even this alternate juror who was interviewed, while she seemed to have somewhat simplistic views of what went on, was at least conscientious.
I was kind of impressed by her, actually. Did you watch the video? Her name's Christensen.
I didn't watch the video.
I identify with her. This happened to me. The one time I sat on a jury through a trial, it was a high school stabbing in D.C. They told me at the end, when I was ready to go and deliberate, that I was the alternate. I was like totally pissed off. We had kind of bonded. It was a good group. And you don't even get to say goodbye to him. You just have to walk out of the courtroom. Depressing. Anyway, she was, I thought she was, I thought she was thinking about it in a responsible way. Look, these people are not legal scholars; they're the average American. But I thought, I was, I actually thought I'd be happy to have her on my jury. Should the things I do ever be discovered?
She also said that she was reluctant to serve on the jury. One of the reasons she was not sure she wanted to serve on the jury was she didn't want a repeat of the riots and disturbances, and she wasn't explaining why she reached a verdict, because she didn't have to reach a verdict.
Yes, although when you first retweeted this, you thought she was. So you get credit, by the way. First of all, you get discredit for tweeting without reading. You tweeted that. Thinking
all I said was yikes. I figured yikes was applicable to whatever circumstance this court applied to. But I was, at the time, thinking, God, did a juror on the trial actually admit that they were worried about riots
I'll read the quote.
When they reached the verdict? And that wasn't
I actually have the quote. She said, they said, did you want to be a juror? She said, and that's the context you weren't aware of when you retweeted it. She said, I had mixed feelings. There was a question on the questionnaire about it, and I put, I did not know. That part wasn't even in the thing you retweeted, but she says
you had it with the second link. If you drill down, you had it.
Right.
Sure.
But you didn't do that. The reason at that time was
I said was yikes, Bob.
But then you later, to your credit, let me read the damn thing. The reason at that time, she says, was I did not know what the outcome was going to be. So I felt like either way you are going to disappoint one group or the other. I did not want to go through rioting and destruction again, and I was concerned about people coming to my house if they were not happy with the verdict. So she acknowledges that all that, when she first thought about being a juror, went through her mind. You tweeted that somebody's tweet about it. I think you were thinking she was saying that actually framed her decision about the verdict. But then, to your credit, you tweeted again with the full context. Too often, people who initially tweet without reading fail to do that. I'm giving you credit.
If that wasn't enough, I tweeted again, admitting that when I tweeted the first time, I thought she was talking about her actual thoughts on reaching a verdict. Right. But she did say what was on her mind, and it was still on her mind. And yep. Bob, as you know, it could have affected what later, her later decision making. On the other hand, when I was called for a jury trial at this courthouse near the airport, which only handles crime, so with no chance of getting called for a civil crime, and I was actually almost impaneled, I was worried that, these are going to be gangbangers and they're going to know where I live. And if I decide to convict them, I'm a paranoid. So every juror has thoughts like this, and it's not unusual to worry about violence being done to you. On the other hand, it shows that the riots were sort of a special circumstance in this case. The one thing I have to say about Maxine Waters, well, first, if ever there was a case for pre-trial publicity prejudicing a jury, this is it. I mean, it's hard to imagine too many cases that are worse than this, certainly for a change of venue. So usually I think pre-trial publicity is a bullshit claim, because what are you going to do? Jurors are conscientious and they try to make up their minds. But if ever there were a case where it wasn't a bullshit claim, it's this one where they live in a city that's being burned down. On the other one, Maxine Waters said it was sort of similar to things that Trump has said, and I defended Trump when he said them. Trump was a little better.
What did Maxine Waters say exactly?
She sort of said, stay in the streets and amp up the confrontation. Be confrontational. She did not say, do violence or they will pay.
Wait, she said that after the verdict or before?
She arrived in town like during the end of the trial and gave this talk. I mean, it was ridiculous. The timing was terrible, but she, I still don't blast her that much because I didn't blast Trump when he said similar things. On the other hand, Trump did say peacefully protest. She left out the peacefully protest part, but she stopped short of calling for violence. Now, as somebody pointed out, she's a smart lady. She knows to stop short of calling for violence, but she did stop short of calling for violence. So I think that opprobrium that's heaped on her is a little excessive, but there's still a pretty good case that they should have had a change of venue, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I thought this is easily a solid manslaughter conviction. One thing I didn't, when the jury first returned a verdict,
they convicted him of way more than manslaughter.
I know, second and third degree murder. But what I didn't realize until after the trial was that neither of those requires a conscious intent to kill in Minnesota. Did you know that?
No. What does it require? Reckless something or other?
I forget the wording. The one that is the most dubious, in spite of that fact, I would say, is second degree. This is pretty. I don't know what the appropriate term is. What does casuistry mean? Do you know? Anyway,
yeah.
It's.
I do know, but go ahead.
The way that apparently, as I understand, again, I didn't do a deep dive, but apparently the second degree murder is it doesn't have to be conscious if the killing happens during the commission of a crime. And of course, that's designed for, like, guy goes into a convenience store with a gun, doesn't plan to kill the clerk. Maybe the clerk pulls a gun. Something happens. He kills the clerk. He didn't want to. Or a gun just goes off. Who knows? But anyway, their argument, I think, was that once he put his knee on his neck, he was assaulting him, which was a crime. And so the murder happened in the course of committing a crime. At least that's
insane. They put a knee on the neck as a means of subduing people. They do it to white people too.
I suspect that the defense attorney said something remarkably like what you just said, except for the "they do it to white people too" thing. I don't think they do this very often, Mickey. I would like to see a video of a guy lying on his stomach, handcuffed, and a cop has a knee on his neck. I'll bet you can't find me a picture. It's weird. I've
tweeted montages of white people around the world being had this done to them by police.
In America, when they're handcuffed?
I don't know where they were from.
Well, that matters. Like, if
it doesn't matter. They do teach this, I believe, so in police training. So it's not
thought there were police witnesses saying
improvised.
I thought there were police witnesses saying the opposite. One of them said, "I didn't even know what you call this because there's no official term for putting your knee on his neck because we're not taught to do it."
I don't know. If we'd paid attention to the trial, we would have a clearer idea.
Stronger position. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Well, one thought, in the aftermath, I thought people were kind of a little uncharitable. It was like, what is it that, like, Nancy Pelosi got, like, I grant you, her tweet was, did you see her tweet?
No.
Not tweet, her remark. She said, "So again, thank you, George Floyd, for sacrificing your life for justice." And so on. People just really jumped on her. And it's like, woman in her 70s is trying to say the right thing. And, when I saw that quote, I thought, that's kind of weird, Nancy. But I just, the intensity of, the other thing was, like, a couple of people did some variation on I can't breathe, like, David Axelrod tweeted, and look, this tweet kind of grosses me out just because it's such an obvious melodramatic play for, attempt to do something. Anyway, he says, "And for now, a nation can breathe again." They piled onto him for that. And yet George Floyd's brother said the same thing. He said,
"Do you think it was right for the president to say this was a murder?"
Well, no, but it would have been a lot worse if the jury was still deliberating. He didn't say it until after we heard that a verdict had been reached.
No, I don't think he tainted the jury. I think but to amp it up to the most extreme charge, sort of as if it's an accepted fact, that's just sort of his style.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's appropriate at all and
it's of a piece with the Charlottesville lie, of course. But anyway.
Don't say Charlottesville lie, even if it's a lie. It just makes people put you in this alt-right category of crazy people.
You're right.
I know. It's shorthand with your fellow believers, but
it's just shorthand because I didn't want to bore you by going. It's it's of a piece with him falsely charging that Trump said the Nazis and fascists marching in Charlottesville were very fine people, when he explicitly excluded them.
Yeah, that's better.
That is what is known on the right as the Charlottesville line.
That's better.
Okay, thank you.
Final thing.
Thank you for helping me be nuanced, Bob.
That's my job. I want to say one more thing related to this.
Don't give your life for nuance, though. That would be bad. Not worth it.
I'm not sure I get that.
That was in very poor taste. Scratch that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out what you're saying because I thought surely he's not alluding to the George Floyd thing, but you were?
No, I wasn't at all.
No, you and I'll give you time to think up what you were alluding to before I ask you again. So no, but on this, did you see? Well, you were probably driving across the country, but you're aware that. I guess it was around the same. It was like the same day, right around the same time. This cop shot this girl, killed this girl in Columbus, Ohio. They're 15-year-old or something.
The one with 16. The knife.
Yeah.
I saw a lot of that. Yeah, I heard a lot of it.
Did you see the video?
Did not see the video. I saw the still of the video with the knife glistening.
No, I mean what's kind of troubling to me. I had a little bit of an epiphany. I mean, it always bothers me when, for reasons of tribal affiliation, people don't just say the obvious thing. And the obvious thing here is this would seem to be a cop complying with the rules. I mean, if you look at the video, when they stop the frame, if I saw this correctly, it's like when he starts shooting and she has a knife. The woman she's attacking is kind of, her back is against a car. She's kind of trapped. And the woman or the girl or whatever who died is plunging the knife toward her. I mean, and apparently at that moment, he shoots her. Now, I can ask all kinds of questions. I always say, could you just shoot once if you're just trying to stop someone, especially someone with a knife who's not going to turn around and shoot you? And maybe they should come up with different rules of engagement for knives because it's actually pretty hard to kill someone with a knife. Still, all that aside, he was trying. He may have actually saved the life of the girl who's being attacked.
Right.
That's clearly what he was trying to do. It's just like they should of course go ahead and do the investigation, which they do. But I just don't see any way. And yet, like, nobody on progressive Twitter virtually would say that. And, did you see the LeBron James tweet?
Yes, I'm in an exculpatory mood. I don't like LeBron James, and it was irresponsible, but he only called for accountability. He didn't call for trying the guy for murder.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That is he said,
you're next.
What?
He said, you're next.
Yeah, meaning this was after the conviction. And what he's saying is, look, that's the charitable reading. Some people took it, and I don't think he meant it this way, but some people took it to mean we're coming after you now. But what could it have meant other than you, like Chauvin, are now going to be put on trial? What could it have meant other than that?
Could be you are going to be held accountable, and
in the way Chauvin was.
If the accountability review determines that you were correct, you won't be put on trial.
Now, yeah, I'm sure that's what he had in mind.
As somebody who
I'm sure he meant we're only going to go to the grand jury with this.
As somebody who irresponsibly tweeted last night, I'm cutting LeBron James a break for irresponsibly tweeting.
Well, look, he deserves credit for then deleting the tweet and not apologizing, but saying, didn't mean to single out this cop. I doubt he ever went and looked at the videotape. Anyway, my epiphany was, not that this is too deep, but Ben Shapiro was getting a ton of mileage out of saying, out of tweeting about this, saying, hey, here's a story the liberal media didn't cover. A girl was actually killed in a knife fight. They didn't cover this story. What do they cover? When a girl is trying to kill another girl with a knife and a cop shoots her, they cover that and talk about the cop shooting her. And I realize, like, the problem with progressives just not, coming out, elite, influential progressives not coming out on Twitter and saying, hey, folks, it looks like this cop was trying to do his duty and we're not going to wind up with an indictment or anything, is that you leave the field open to the Ben Shapiros on the right. It's because nobody is saying that on the left, that it's because he's in effect arguing with the left, that he can get mileage out of that in a billion retweets.
Yeah. Right. And Don Levin did say almost what you said. So
did he?
Give him credit, yeah.
God bless him.
He said, let's wait a minute, let's look at the video. It looks like it's more complicated.
Well, that's something.
He didn't go out and say it looks like the cop did the right thing.
Okay,
but he basically implied, don't try to fit this in your narrative so quickly.
Look, he gets credit. That's good. But I would say, looking at the video, it's actually not complicated. I mean,
right. Well,
I'm sure the rules of engagement say if your life or someone else's life is in danger, you shoot. That's what he did.
Here's the one troubling complication, which is, I always thought, you come in the middle of a fight. It's like you come in the middle of World War II and you said, Churchill, Hitler, they're fighting. Why don't they stop fighting? And you don't know who's at fault, who started it, what happened before you showed up. So you treat them as equivalents. So cop comes in the middle of a fight. Right. He doesn't know what went on before. Now, admittedly, the girl stabbing the other girl who was holding a puppy, it's like,
was she?
Probably she's the aggressor, but you don't really know, right?
No, you don't.
He doesn't know the context.
You work with what you have, and of course, if you see a girl with a knife and a girl without a knife, your thought, if the cop stopped and thought this through, you'd think, well, if you've got an argument with a girl who doesn't have a knife, you're supposed to call the police or something, not pick up a knife and try to. I mean, look, you're right, though. He had incomplete information, and I'm just saying. Look, let me admit. I didn't tweet what I'm saying somebody should have tweeted. And the reason is I'm busy and I thought, do I have time to really be careful about the way I construct this tweet and then deal with the blowback? No, I don't. It takes courage to do it. And I didn't have enough or something, but you could have just tweeted yikes. That always does the job. That worked for you.
The answer, the one saving grace, though, is if you do get it wrong, you find out immediately, and you get to the truth very quickly.
That's the great thing about Twitter blowback, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, but see, I find it so painful. And generally, if I tweet something that I know is going to get a lot of blowback, and I know why, if I know it's going to get a lot of what I consider illegitimate blowback, which is the only kind of expectation I would have, because if I thought it was going to get legitimate blowback, I wouldn't tweet it. I just go away. I just tweet it, close Twitter for a while, and go hug my puppies.
And a lot of the mainstream press, like NPR and NBC, didn't mention the knife and just fit it right into the series of cops shoot black people.
Yeah, or they might say a girl with a knife was lunging at another girl. But it was just striking to me looking at the video. No, she is plunging the knife toward the abdomen of the other girl.
They didn't even say that, though. There was no knife in the first. The first draft fit the narrative completely. Am I allowed to say narrative, or is that a shorthand phrase that only appeals to the right wing base?
I think narrative probably started out as a left wing thing and is still used on the left. It's just used about the right. The right uses it about the left.
Okay, so I can say narrative.
Yeah, just not about the left. I
just can't say Charlottesville lie. Okay.
Can't say Charlottesville lie. You can say Charlottesville narrative. You can say the Charlottesville narrative about what Trump said.
Really?
You can say that.
Okay. God, you're loose. Okay.
I'm getting soft in my old age.
But there were other killings. It does. If the numbers of black men shot by white cops is as low as I think it is. It does seem like there's an awful cluster of them right around now. Maybe I'm just the victim of the narrative.
Well, there was also the Dante Wright thing not that much earlier in the Minneapolis area, right? The one where the cop thought she was holding a taser, apparently.
Right. I don't understand that one at all.
Well, maybe they shouldn't make tasers so much like guns. I mean, maybe that you should just like push a button on the back of the handle of a taser instead of like pulling a trigger, and then there wouldn't be any danger of that. I got to think it doesn't happen often.
Yeah, you would think there'd be a fix like that. You would also think a 20-year veteran wouldn't make that mistake, and they'd hold.
Was she a 20-year veteran?
Yeah, they'd hold the taser in a different side of your body.
I will say that I have never been in the kind of situations cops are in. And so I don't know. I might reach for my taser. My gun, and think it's my taser.
Yeah.
But the fact that it's a left-right thing, I agree. It's the reason this apparently does not happen much.
So I think we've almost covered topic A.
Let me.
I hate topic A. We have the other topic A was obviously Afghanistan.
Oh, let me just quickly one more note on this topic A. Tiny little press note of the kind I'm inclined to note. Just that both the New York Times and the Washington Post, in their breaking big headline about this verdict, use the word rare to note that it was a rare conviction of a cop. Wall Street Journal did not, which confirms my belief that the Wall Street Journal's straight news coverage is more old-fashioned. Well, I mean, it's a fact. It's a fact that they're rare. It's just that that's not like an opinion. It's just the kind of thing you would bring in to make a point.
It reads to me like the Times reporters file their stories, and then one of the editors goes through and sticks in propagandistic adjectives like rare in order to make it more appealing to their audience. Like there was a piece on Obama's decision to first keep the Trump cap on refugees and then raise it. And it was not such a great story, but it was a reasonable TikTok. But it had before refugees in the second graph, it had desperate refugees. And then later on, it talked about the refugees as the most vulnerable migrants. Well, who says they're the most vulnerable migrants? They're sitting in refugee camps being vetted by the United Nations. There are a lot of migrants that are more vulnerable than that. But some editor just sort of stupidly stuck that in, or the reporter stupidly stuck that in. But somebody sticks it in at the New York Times, and it sure looks like, there's an automotive analogy. Ford Motor Company, famous for having these crews that go through the final design, and they cheapen the interior to save money, supposedly in a way that nobody can notice. Of course, everybody notices. It's like the New York Times has a woke crew that goes through the final drafts and adds these stupid adjectives that make it less objective.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if the Times was all that intrusive, except maybe with the, young, non-famous reporters who don't have the leverage to fight back or something.
I know I once thought they did it with David Carr, and he told me incredibly graciously, no, that was just my stupid thing or something. He was just unbelievably gracious.
Oh, I'm sure they kept their hands off him. He was such a valuable property. He was one of the last people who, like, I would see a piece by he died, of course, some years ago, but he was, he covered the beat that, in effect, I guess Ben Smith is kind of covering, although in a different way. But he was one of those bylines, and there have not been many like this, where I would see that it's one of his columns and be like kind of excited to read it.
Really?
Yeah. Great writer. And he was covering stuff I was interested in. It was a beat I was interested in. He had a very good way of like energetically framing these things.
He was good, but he was rarely going to say anything that the editors disapproved of.
Well, that's not the only kind of good story. I mean,
but that's what
that's true of things in general in the media realm.
Even Ben Smith, sloppy as he is, has said things that the editors would disapprove of. Even though in the one case you talked about, he did the editor's bidding. And even though he libeled me by saying I lived in a small apartment.
I actually said that in the Parrot Room, and I thought it was safe from his ears until you tweeted about it and name-checked him.
Well, so it's already out.
Thus ending the chances that he would someday write a fawning column about my podcast. Or
you would have to attack him again and again and say, I'll let up if you write something fawning about me. That's the only alternative now.
That's the way I play the game. That's why you see so many fawning pieces.
It works. If you actually play that game, it works.
No, you have to have power.
Sometimes.
But I have learned that it works in cases where I've stumbled onto that strategy. Yeah. But it wouldn't work with the Ben Smiths of the world.
But so I think you're right about the Journal versus the Times.
Yeah, it's weird because there is no editorial section I loathe more than the journals, but the reportorial stuff is pretty solid.
There's a famous wall between them. Although they did... Yeah. Anyway, it makes you wonder how much Dean Baquet is in charge, because I doubt he approves of all this.
The inmates are running the asylum, Mickey.
That's a
oh, wait, is that an
similarity between the New York Times and the Biden administration, Bob?
That reminds me. You'll be happy about this. There's a paper that came. I just saw this tweeted. In fact, it's dated April 23rd. It's in some journal, and it's called "Racial Equality Frames in Public Policy Support: Survey Experimental Evidence." The finding is that when it's by Micah English and Joshua L. Kalla, Kalla, the finding is that when it is a policy that is not, at least when it's not explicitly about race. Like say it's about low-income housing, right. And you frame it as about race, as these authors note that in the BLM era, Democrats are increasingly doing, framing it about race.
Well, certainly Biden is.
Yeah, their finding is, and apparently there's a lot of survey evidence of this now. It makes it less popular. Like framing it in racial terms is a mistake. You should you're better off framing it in either class terms. Let's see. To benchmark these effects, we compare race policy frame with race with a class frame, with a race and class frame, and neutral policy frames. We demonstrate that despite leftward shifts in public attitudes towards issues of racial equality, racial framing decreases support for race-neutral progressive policies. Generally, the class frame most successfully increases support for progressive policies across racial and political subgroups. Is this what I have been saying, Mickey, or is it not what I have been saying?
Yes, that sounds important. Can you send me the link?
I can, I think. Anyway,
But of course, to appeal to the BLM crowd, the Democrats cannot phrase things in non-racial terms. The whole point of BLM is to the extent it's an extinct ideology, is to phrase it in racial terms. You don't want to say, I will appoint the most qualified candidate and then appoint a black woman. You have to commit to appointing a black woman because they get special consideration.
Well, so they think. Of course, appointments is a different kind of thing.
That's what they do.
Well, I know they do, but I would note that last sentence of this abstract, the class frame most successfully increases support for progressive policies across racial and political subgroups. So in other words, it sounds like, I haven't read the whole paper, it sounds like even among minority ethnic groups, you're better off not framing it as being about race. And, this is relevant to the question of, is Biden right to think that this has broad-based appeal? Framing things this way in terms of race has broad-based appeal among within racial minorities, or is it just more about pleasing the POC elites?
Yeah, I agree. That's what it is. Also about does Biden really believe in the crap he spouts, or are the inmates running the asylum and he just says what he's expected to say? There was a very telling, and I don't know quite what it's telling of, episode where he they lobbied him to increase the Trump limits on refugees, and he's doing all these incredibly liberal progressive things on the border. He got rid of Remain in Mexico. He's not deporting anybody. He's letting in hundreds of thousands of people, and he's paying a political price for it. And somewhere inside him, there was the old anti-busing Joe Biden who said, no, this is killing me. I got to say something seemingly triangulating or conservative. So we're not going to do this refugee limit thing. We're going to keep it the way it is. And it's like, and he didn't realize that this didn't just piss off progressives. It pissed off the whole refugee industrial complex, the charities that depend on more refugees for their living. And they all ginned up a huge storm, and he caved in. But it's just, why would he pick that one issue to draw the line on, unless it was just, this deep within progressive Joe Biden, there was the old Joe Biden, and somehow it came out in this weird way. If you were going to make a concession to sanity on immigration, there are a dozen more important things than you could do aside from keeping the refugee limit. The refugee limit is 15,000. If you raised it to 50,000, that would be like as many people as he's letting in the border in a couple of weeks. The numbers are just not huge. It's not a place where and they are vetted. So it's not like this is the place to draw the line. It's just very odd. But it implies that there is some sense in which his id is not in sync with what he's saying or what his administration is doing.
Now, speaking of places to draw the line, Mickey, we've been taping for 57 minutes, and I want to assure you that this has nothing to do with the fact that you've gotten onto the subject of immigration. But we could bring this conversation to a halt and move it to the Parrot Room.
You want to hear about immigration in the Parrot Room, or you want to hear about it here?
Are those my only two options?
I'm happy to talk about it in the Parrot Room.
So
I know that's a big draw. That's a big draw for people too.
I think that's really the main revenue stream we have is that fascinated by immigration revenue stream. Actually, there's one other thing, Mickey. There is an ethnic lobby that I think has an unfortunate influence on American foreign policy. Can you guess what that lobby is? Dun, dun,
the Irish.
Dun. What?
No. The Irish.
No. You know what you're supposed to guess.
But the Irish do actually have an unfortunate influence. But
what are they? Hey, you're talking about my people. What?
On Northern Ireland, supposedly.
Oh, so you're evoking that old anti-Irish trope about Irish people caring about Northern Ireland.
I evoke all the tropes and the memes.
Are you aware of the history of that trope?
And the discredited memes. And
so you're not going to do a serious guess here. I mean, you're not even going to do the obvious serious guess?
You could put me down for the obvious serious guess, and you're going to say, no, it's this other lobby.
No, it's this other lobby.
What's the other lobby?
Now, if I were really the P.T. Barnum of podcasts, I would say, we'll find out in the Parrot Room. But, I'm not going to say that because I'm not that kind of...
It could be the Ukrainians. They're pretty powerful.
Bingo.
Okay.
So in the latest...
Although Colonel Vidman is Jewish, so he's a twofer.
I wasn't thinking about him in particular. In the Nonzero newsletter that goes out actually in 2 minutes, it's 4:58 p.m. East Coast time right now, in the Friday Week-in blog issue of the newsletter, we recount a case where a perfectly qualified candidate for a position, Matthew Rajansky, was being considered to be the Russia guy in the National Security Council. The Ukraine lobby went. Is there a Ukraine lobby? Anyway, these Ukrainian.
You didn't listen during the impeachment hearings? Of course there is.
Okay. Better you saying it than mine. I just want to, for all I know, there's a trope. I don't want to,
The blob is the Ukraine lobby. What was the interagency committee? What was the thing that Vidman was so concerned with pleasing? The interagency consensus, whatever it was. I don't know.
Well, anyway, this is the Ukrainians who wrote the relevant letter and so on did not include Vidman. But anyway, we do a kind of dissection about this, about how this guy was brought down. They leak his appointment. It's Axios does the bidding of the blob, and he's history. And we go through the indictment against him, and it's just bullshit. He's just like, he's a reasonable, he's a reasonable guy. Yeah, he's somewhat more realist than your average member of the foreign policy establishment, but he's like head of the George Kennan Institute at the Wilson Center, which is this government thing, basically. I think it's supported entirely by government grants. He's totally mainstream. And anyway, you can see the newsletter for...
I didn't realize that Biden was that vulnerable to people knocking off his appointees.
Well, this is the point we make, is that this is not like it required Senate confirmation. It's not like Biden concedes this can't get through the Senate. All he had to do is say, you're appointed. Now, I'm not saying they had narrowed it down to him, but once it was leaked, once the controversy arose, it was leaked that he's under consideration. They apparently, according to Politico, dropped him like a hot potato. And this is serious. I mean, Ukraine is a flashpoint. We could wind up, involved in hostilities there. Not impossible. Yeah. And the people who got him dumped probably wouldn't mind seeing American firepower brought to bear there if it came to that.
Although the news today was that Russia had pulled back a bit, and it's not clear why they did that. Was there some secret discussion with the U.S. or Europe or something?
No, you didn't hear that Biden came out and said Putin's not a killer after all.
Right.
No, actually, that didn't.
Anyway, it was pregnant.
I think what I had heard was Russia was just trying to make sure that Ukraine and America respected the de facto line of division between Eastern Ukraine and, Eastern Ukraine is, I think, in effect controlled by Russian proxies. I mean, they are Eastern Ukrainians who believe in the cause, but I mean that Russia doesn't want that line challenged, I think.
And then there was this theory that was all about the Black Sea, and Turkey would be upset by that because you can't get to the Black Sea unless you go through the straits there, and they control the straits. So maybe they have something to say about it.
I'd have to look at a map. I mean, Russia's got Crimea. I don't know what else you'd want. A lot of beachfront property there.
That's where his palace is.
Oh, is it? Is that the one Navalny?
Yeah, I think so.
It's all falling into place.
Yes.
That's, I guess, annexation has a lot of justifications, and one is that you want a nice palace.
Yeah. Okay.
So we're going to move into the Parrot Room. Some things I may talk about. I want to talk about, as long as we're talking about LeBron James, I want to revisit his most famously bad piece of judgment. Although actually his agent is to blame for this, but you may remember it. But
what the telethon on whether he's going to move to Miami?
Yeah, worth revisiting.
That was
for those who don't follow this assiduously. He should have fired his agent. I've been reading a couple of books about World War I. May want to talk about I could confess. I don't know. This is jury duty related. My jury duty related confession. We'll leave it at that. Also, I think we should start. I should start in the Parrot Room. I should start psychoanalyzing you.
Great.
You are happy about that? You're up for that?
For free?
Totally. We could move it to a higher tier. Speaking of which, this is also the official unveiling of the $8 tier that includes subscription to the paid version of the Nonzero newsletter. We'll talk about that more.
As long as there's nothing sexual.
Well, that's for you to disclose or not disclose. That's what we're trying to get to the root of your psychopathologies. I'm going in with an open mind. It may be about sex, maybe about something else.
It's about me. That's all I care about.
It will be about you. I guarantee that. So, okay, so you're going to do that. Good. This is going to be good.
While you concentrate on tawdry personal analysis, I can talk about immigration and child allowances, and also my version of Infrastructure Week is planning to talk about Biden's decision whether to expand Medicare or to reinforce the Obamacare provisions, and so, which should he do?
Can I go back about 30 seconds? You're actually saying that people should consider you talking about immigration and child care allowance bonus content? Like, you just can't get it on the free version of the podcast.
You can't get enough of it, Bob. We give him a yard in the regular podcast, and we give him a yard more in the Parrot Room.
Okay.
That's my vision of the Parrot Room. Perhaps yours is different.
Well, it's hard to say. And, I'm not sure I'll be able to make the Parrot Room today, Mickey. I just realized I have a pressing appointment. I got to get a root canal.
Root canals aren't that bad, I hear.
Mine was. We've been through this. The woman did not give me enough Novocaine.
I thought you were the one who said it wasn't that bad.
Well, they're not that bad if they give you enough Novocaine.
Okay, well, there you go.
So on to the Parrot Room after this. But first, a word from our parrot.
Novocaine.
Okay, here we go. Oh, I forgot to add that the way you get to the Parrot Room is through patreon.com/parrotroom. Okay, that's it.